Hey, folks, we are back to talk some high school football here with Inside Nova and Inside Nova sports editor Dave Fawcett. How you doing this morning, Dave?
Good to see you.
All right, good to see you as well. Well, we are humming along here in this year's high school football season. We're going to start off. I know Colgan is off to a fast start. How have they done it thus far, Dave?
Well, a couple things going on there. They certainly have some skilled players they can work with. I think they have a first year head coach in Lauren White who came over from Brentsville where he had led them that program to the most success it had ever had in his 4 years there. So I think there's just a new, kind of a new um, spirit going on there, and
Mhm.
you can see it in the results. I mean, you know, maybe for a lot of programs, 3-0 isn't a huge thing. I think for them, though, it's never happened before. Since
Right.
they first fielded a varsity team in 2017, they've never had a winning record, let alone made the playoffs. So this is probably a long time coming. Obviously, there's still 7 games to play
Yeah.
in the regular season, but they're putting themselves in a position to really have a special season that could obviously not only have a winning record, but possibly make the playoffs. And so um, they're winning games they probably should win, and then they're also staying resilient. They're not kind of coming in and taking anyone for granted. I mean, they played Unity Reed this past Friday. Unity Reed was winless, but they still came in and won 64-8. They had their star running back Yadon Davis had a single game record setting performance when he scored 6 touchdowns. He had five
Not a,
rushing and one receiving. So and he was one of those kids that certainly expected something from, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. I think there's a number of probably unsung heroes too, kids that they're just plugging in the right positions, and you're starting to see some things really building and heading in the right direction there, and so they could very possibly go 4-0. They play a 0-3 broad run school this Friday out of Loudoun County. So it's they're trending in the right direction because after this Friday, then they'll start district play and then go from there.
Nice. How much kind of credit do you give to Lauren, to the new coach?
I think it all starts there. I
Yeah.
mean, he's their third head coach they've had there since the school opened in 2016, and you'll obviously come in with all your expectations and plans, but he's really the kids are buying in. There seems to be a real camaraderie, collaboration there going on. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it just starts with him and everything that he does. Obviously, again, success, what he did at Brentsville, it's carried over here. And he was ready. This is a challenge he wanted. He went from a smaller school now to, one of the larger schools, if not the largest high school in Prince William County. And so he's ready for this. And given the culture there and kind of they've struggled over since they've opened, this is a prime opportunity
Yeah.
for him and them to then you know
And for our viewers and listeners, Dave did a great preview story ahead of the season, a nice little profile on Colgan's coach. So you kind of go back a few weeks and give that a read, and it was almost kind of prophetic in how they've started off this season at 3-0. We'll jump over to another undefeated team, undefeated for multiple seasons now.
right.
Battlefield keeping things interesting. What's
Yeah.
their win streak at now, Dave?
Their regular season win streak is now at 46.
Yeah.
It was definitely in jeopardy there. This
Hmm.
past Friday, they hosted South Lakes out of Reston. South Lakes is good. They came in undefeated as well. Um, Battlefield's making things interesting, but the old cliche goes, good teams find ways to win. Keaton Ramey has kind of become their Mr. Clutch. He's the one that scored the game tying touchdown against North Stafford the last second. He came through again this past Friday, returned a kickoff. South Lakes had gone up. They were leading. They kick off. Keaton Ramey returns the kickoff 97 yards with 21 seconds left. They come away with the victory. So there were issues with penalties primarily, especially in the first half. They had 9 penalties, I think, for almost 100 yards. So they turned the ball over. So there were some internal things there, and working through. But when they needed to do what they needed to do to pull out that victory.
Yeah,
They did that. So, that's, I would imagine a team like Battlefield's always going to get someone else's best, because of who they
of
are and
course, right.
all that. So that's even going to, ramp things up even more. So yeah, making Craig Hatfield probably sweat out there a little bit, the head coach, but
Yeah.
they're doing it.
You win 46 in a row. They're probably not always going to be pretty, but it's
That's right.
impressive regardless. So,
Yeah.
man, really, really impressive. And it's a fun storyline to watch for us. How long does this streak keep going? And
Right.
as you've mentioned in previous weeks, they definitely have kind of state title aspirations, state championship aspirations. So that is one we are monitoring and checking in on every week. What are we looking at here for this Friday? Looking
So,
ahead.
right. So the big game is going to be at Woodbridge
We
this Friday.
continue with the Woodbridge storyline.
Yeah, and so Woodbridge, not to take anything away from its previous three opponents, but this is the game they've been really waiting for. They played North Stafford in the first round of the playoffs last year. Were up early, 14-0, ended up losing 35-28. I think it's a game they felt like they should have won and didn't, and so now, with this season, this will give them a really good opportunity just to see, okay, we're 3-0, but how good of a 3-0 team are we?
Mhm.
They're really excited, but they know that they're facing, a really challenging opponent because North Stafford, they very easily could be 3-0. They lost in the last second to Battlefield in week one on August 28th. So it's a really, really good matchup. But I think Woodbridge really wants to use this um, as a litmus test, really to say, okay, we think and they're good. They've beaten, you know, really hammered teams. They beat Dunbar 34-0. They're racking up the points. The defense is playing well, but
Right.
now comes the a test not only because of who it is and who they played last year, but just how good North Stafford is.
And you've been out to some of their games, and our reporters have been to their matchups. Have Has the student body been rallying around? Are these packed games, a lot of celebration and fanfare?
Yeah, I was there. I went to the Woodbridge's game this past Friday. They
Mhm.
beat Dunbar 34-0, and yeah, there was definitely
Yeah.
a lot of interest, a lot of excitement. They score a lot of points. Their quarterback, Caleb Tucker, threw 4 touchdown passes to 4 different receivers. Their defense was just stifling. Really, Woodbridge could have won by a lot more. They um, turned the ball over twice inside the 20. It was a pretty dominating performance, but certainly opportunities to work on things. And, against a North Stafford team that may, they can't probably afford to have, too many
Right.
turnovers or even penalties because North Stafford will make you pay. They're good enough to do that. And Woodbridge knows that. But this is the
Yeah.
one, not to look ahead too far, again, beyond the other opponents, but this is the one they've really wanted to they've been waiting for.
Yeah. So
So it
you
should be a really good one because these are two playoff caliber teams. I would say probably North Stafford, Colonial Forge, and Battlefield are the top four, not necessarily
okay.
in that order, but the top four teams in the region. And so not only is it just for right now, but it's obviously got postseason implications as
Mhm.
well, and kind of how matchups are going. So it's a good early season test for
And
a number of reasons.
you love to see that kind of the class and the students, the non-athlete, the non-football players are getting behind them and out there rallying around the
Well,
team. That's kind of what Friday Night Lights is all about, right?
and we talked, you asked this earlier before we came on camera, but when's the last time Woodbridge has, been this good? And it's, 2018. That's not that long ago, but it's
Mhm.
still,
Yeah.
it's still not terribly recent either. And they started the season off 6-0 that season, and then ended up 7-3. But this team, has the makings of being, as good possibly as the not 2017 Woodbridge team that went 9-1, ended up going 12-2 and reached the state semifinal. So, there's a lot of things that still have to come into play for them. But if they, get through this, it's not, they're really in a good position um, to see, just see just how far they can really go.
Right. Great. Well, Dave, thank you so much for giving us our insight into the Prince William and surrounding area high school football scene. The season is in full swing now. We, of course, have the stories and recaps up very quickly Friday night, Saturday morning. Folks, football fans, be sure to tune in. I guess visit in on Inside Nova and check out Dave's coverage. Thank you. And as always, check out InsideNoVa.com.